Good evening. It's so lovely to see you all here. My name is Beandrea. I'm a film programmer here at the UCLA Film and Television Archive. Welcome to the Billy Wilder, which is the home of all of our programs. Curious, how many of you, is this your first time here at an archive event? Oh my gosh, almost everybody. Wonderful. Well, welcome. We're so glad you're here, and welcome back to those who've been here before. If you've been here before, you know I have to do my announcements at the beginning. But first, I do want to just welcome you to this wonderful theater, this wonderful screening of Lesbian Custody, followed by In the Best Interests of the Children. This free screening, along with all of our year-round public programming, is made possible by the generosity of an anonymous donor and our partners here at the Hammer Museum. I want to give thanks to the Cone Foundation for supporting the Legacy Project screening series, as well as our community partner, Queer Film Los Angeles, for their continued support. I want to thank the wonderful archive staff, without whom truly none of this would happen, and also our theater staff, our student theater staff. Let's give them a hand. And you are welcome to take photos or video before or after the screening, but we ask you to refrain from doing so during the films. And please silence and put away your devices so that we can all enjoy the experience with minimal distractions. And if you are up for sharing about your experience tonight, you can tag us at UCLA FTV Archive. That's UCLA FTV Archive on social media, as well as on Letterboxd. You're welcome to leave a review and say that you saw the films here. And if you'd like to learn more about our programs, you can go to cinema.ucla.edu to sign up for our newsletter. And of course, you can follow us on social. And I'll just say that tomorrow night, we're doing a 30th anniversary screening of The Incredibly True Adventures of Two Girls in Love, Maria Magenti's classic. And then on Sunday, for our Beyond Barbie series, we're having the filmmakers of We Are the Radical Monarchs, which is actually another Bay Area theme like tonight, which is about this amazing group of Girl Scouts in Oakland. So come back for that as well. Okay, so I want to tell you a little bit about these amazing films we're about to watch tonight. This is going to be like a really special experience, so you all are you're in the right place tonight. So In the Best Interests of the Children, in 2021, UCLA Film and Television Archive digitally restored this film from the 16 millimeter, from the original AB reversals and the 16 millimeter magnetic track. The laboratory services were by Color Lab, Audio Mechanics, and the funding came from National Film Preservation Foundation, Women's Film Preservation Fund of New York Women in Film and Television, and the Leon Levy Foundation. And so we want to thank them, and also Women Make Movies. So just to give you some context on the films tonight, between 1967 and 1985, lesbian mothers across the U.S. routinely lost custody of their children. Family courts widely viewed same-sex coupling as incompatible with parenthood. Judges used the vague legal standard, quote, the best interests of the child, end quote, as a smokescreen for moral condemnation, citing fears that children of lesbians would be stigmatized, emotionally harmed, or, quote, turned gay. Courts regularly prohibited these mothers from living with their partners, engaging in activism, or even visibly being part of gay and lesbian communities if they wished to retain parental rights. This period also marked a time of rising LGBTQ plus visibility, which only increased the vulnerability of lesbian mothers, especially those who had left heterosexual marriages. For mothers of color, the threat of custody loss was compounded by racism and class discrimination. Many lived in fear, settling cases quietly or hiding their identities to avoid being deemed morally unfit. So it's in this climate that In the Best Interests of the Children was made. Completed almost 50 years ago in 1977 by the trio Frances Reid, who's here tonight, Elizabeth Stevens, and Kathy Zoitlin. This groundbreaking documentary gave voice to 8 families navigating the discriminatory contradictions of the family court system. With grace and compassion, the film captures a diverse set of experiences through candid interviews with mothers and, most poignantly, their children. It's the interviews with the kids that just knocked me out with this film. Nearly a decade before researchers began to publish data affirming that children raised by lesbian mothers thrive, this film made that abundantly clear, delivering a powerful and tender portrait of familial love and resilience. And before we see the feature doc, we're going to watch a wonderful video essay called Lesbian Custody, made by 2 filmmakers, Topiary Landberg and Molly. I have the thing here, but I don't have it in front of me. Oh, yeah, here it is. Molly Skonieczny. Molly Skonieczny. Okay, sorry, Molly. Oh, good. Okay, I did all right. Sorry. So Topiary and Molly made Lesbian Custody. This is a brand spanking new video essay that came out this year. And this is in direct conversation within the best interest of the children. So it reintroduces us to now retired filmmaker Frances Reid and her stepdaughter, Julie Stevens, who's also here tonight. And it explores Julie's separation from her mother, Elizabeth Stevens, after she came out as a lesbian and faced a difficult custody battle. And at the time, Elizabeth Stevens was Reid's partner and, of course, co-directing in the best interest of the children. So blending archival footage with the poignancy of hindsight, the essay offers a layered historical perspective on queer family struggles and the hard-won fight for parental rights. So just really enjoy the film, and we will have a fabulous Q&A afterwards with Frances, Topiary, Molly, and Julie. So it's going to be a good one. Enjoy. Now retired filmmaker Frances Reid in 2000 was nominated for an Academy Award. She produced and directed Skin Deep, which was broadcast nationally on PBS, and Straight from the Heart, which earned another Academy Award nomination. Her cinematography credits include The Times of Harvey Milk and Complaints of a Dutiful Daughter. Her current project, Exposure, A Filmmaker on the Edge of History, is a documentarian's memoir. Welcome, Frances. Next up, we have Samuael Topiary, aka Topiary Landberg, is a media artist, writer, film curator, and educator. Her work explores queer history, urban landscapes, environmentalism, and found footage in experimental and documentary media. She's a recipient of the McDowell Fellowship and a former Sister Spit member. Her work is screened widely, including the film festivals Frameline, Mix NYC, and Image Plus Nation. She co-hosts Animal, Vegetable, Mineral, a podcast about all things documentary, and recently published an article on In the Best Interest of Children and Feminist Media Histories in the spring of 2025. She teaches at UC Santa Cruz and programs for the Mill Valley Film Festival. Welcome, Samuael Topiary. And then we have Molly Skonieczny. I'm sorry, I'm saying it wrong. Skonieczny. Okay, I got it. Molly Skonieczny is a filmmaker and art director whose work explores underrepresented histories and communities. She co-founded Tolson's Photo and Video Department, which she has directed for over 15 years, seamlessly bridging independent and commercial media projects. Her practice includes directing, editing, and producing short documentaries, multimedia campaigns, and art installations. Based in Oakland and Brooklyn, she holds a BFA in graphic design from California College of the Arts. Welcome, Molly. And then we have Julie. Julie Stevens grew up in Southern California and moved to the San Francisco Bay Area in the late 1970s at the age of 13 to live with her 2 moms. She is the founder of the Urban Retreat Center in Oakland. And that's what I have for Julie right now, because I didn't know Julie was going to be here tonight until like an hour ago. So I'm so excited that she has made it. So come join us. All right. Wow. Well, I don't think I had seen the films in such close succession before tonight. I saw them at separate times. And it was really powerful seeing them together, right? Do you feel that? Just even the sort of like the callbacks, right, of what was excerpted in the short and then what was, the original source material. So I wonder if you could say, starting with Frances, like, when was the last time you saw your film, and what is it like seeing it now?
This is on, right? You can hear me? First, before I answer that question, I just want to start by, I will say something about seeing this tonight, which is this is the first time I've seen the restoration on a big screen.
Nice.
I've seen it on my computer screen until now. And thank you, UCLA, for doing it. I think it just looks so gorgeous. And also, I really want to thank so much both Julie and Topiary. I mean, I wouldn't be here right now on this stage. This film wouldn't be up here on the screen like this if it were not for Julie's vision to want to preserve her mother's memory, and Topiary taking that and really running with it. So thank you both so much for that. I love you both. You know that. So that partially answers your question in terms of, but I've seen various iterations of. Am I calling you Samuel or Topiary tonight?
You call me Topiary.
Good.
True queer, many names.
Yeah. I hadn't seen them together like this, and I hadn't even seen the absolutely final version of Topiary's film until tonight, and I love how they play together. I mean, Topiary knows, as we talked about it over the time, that sometimes I was a little bit nervous about her using a lot of the footage from Best Interests in the film, like, is that going to work? But I think it works beautifully. So thank you, Topiary, for for honoring Julie's and my relationship and honoring the relationship to the film. It really means a lot to me.
That's right.
Wonderful, yeah. Did you want to say anything, Julie, about seeing it now? Either and both, yeah.
All of what you said, ditto. And seeing them together was, I wasn't sure how that was going to go. And it was made to be like that, just like every moment, right? The restoration is beautiful. I mean, that's a lot of my childhood up there, so I remember it kind of scratchy and this and that, but that was really beautiful. So, I want to say thank you, Topi and Molly and Fran and Frances. Do not call her Fran.
Okay. This is the army of lovers up here. What's the second part of that phrase? I already forgot. The army of lovers is cannot be defeated. Absolutely. Cannot fail. Okay. Yeah, that was a really nice tag of seeing the mother who was talking about being a respectful parent wearing the T-shirt also. It's like really great. Well, Frances, you already kind of got us started with, talking a little bit about how you got involved in the video essay. So just give us a little bit of a background in how you and Topiary first connected.
We first connected because Topiary reached out to me when she was curating this show at the Oakland Museum.
I was not the curator.
Well, no, okay, you were not the curator. But all right.
I was just a worker.
Okay. This wonderful worker reached out to me and said that they wanted to show in the best interest of the children, and they did, and it was a really crappy looking version because it had been taken from the 16 millimeter and in some really cheapo way had been digitized and so forth. And so that I think that was part. You gave me a copy of what you had, from that point, and I just thought this film can't really see the light of day like this so much. But that was how Topiary and I first met, and then independently from that, she and Julie met, and then Julie put Topiary and I together again after that, and then we just started talking about how you started really saying something has to happen with your film. So, and that was probably about 4 years ago or something when we first.
I think it was 2023.
Okay, 23.
Wow, so pretty quick
so
in
that's
documentary years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Topiary, why don't you tell us your inspiration in terms of, I understand that you originally wanted to make a feature and then kind of pivoted to making a short. Tell us about that.
Well, Molly and I started talking about this amazing story, which was getting to know Julie and realizing that Julie was the daughter of the filmmakers of this film that I had helped to procure for the Oakland Museum show. And I had remembered that Frances was disappointed to learn that the film wasn't going to screen in a theater. It was like on a loop, and it wasn't clearly marked when it was being shown. And I felt disappointed because I worked really hard to try to procure the film. It was actually kind of hard to get. And so it was kind of in the back of my mind that it was a film that didn't really get its due, even though it was, I think the Queer California show was an amazing show, and I would never have known about the film had I not been working on that show. So when I met Julie and she started asking me about could I help get a screening of the film, knowing that I did some programming and that I knew about the film, I thought, I can do one better than that. I can write an article about it and get it published in an academic journal because that's one of the things I do. And then I thought, actually, that film should be restored. And I knew that Outfest and the Legacy Project and UCLA was doing restorations of older queer films. And I thought, this is a great film to advocate for. And so I worked some of my connections and found out who was the right person to talk to. And it was actually not hard. They were like, oh, yeah, it should be, definitely, let's make it happen. And then the team at UCLA that I was working with, Todd Weiner and
Todd's great.
Jillian Borders, they said, let's apply for a National Film Preservation Fund grant. So I helped with that. And then we got that. And then Women Make Movies said, let's apply for Women's Film Preservation Fund. So we applied and got that. It was actually not hard. At least not on my part, and then it kind of flowed from there. But like in terms of you add. Yeah.
I was going to add to that. When Topiary and I got together, she was telling me about how she had been working on restoring this film at UCLA and about Queer California show and the article. And so she's like, you should see this film. It's amazing. It's amazing. I've been watching. So I went over to your house and we're watching the film. And as you kind of dropped into this time capsule, and being Gen X for me, seeing the 70s, it was kind of like there's all that. And then it was this moment of, first of all, for myself feeling like, how do I not know this history? It's not like this was 200 years ago, even 50 years ago. Yeah. These are contemporaries. But then we were talking afterwards, and I had asked Topiary, how did you get this connection? And she was telling me about, Frances the Restoration, but then says, oh yeah, I was also at a party in Oakland, and it was like sort of healing circle, and I met someone there, and we were talking about things, and she was talking about her moms who were filmmakers, and it turns out it was Julie, the daughter from the inspiration from the film, and then in that moment, I was like, this is more than an article. Of course, I'm like an eternal optimist, but I was like, this is a feature, because it just was so that the combination of that history that was underrepresented, getting in touch with having the participant, Frances, your legacy in the Bay Area, the whole thing was just sort of came together. And so that was sort of the impetus for us taking off on that project.
Oh my gosh, I'm just sitting here trying to track all the different layers of overlap. And
you're trying to track it. It was actually really hard to write the narration to make it parse. that was like a big challenge, was like how much information, how little information. Like there were many versions of like the narration to try to make it make sense, because it is kind of multi-layered.
Right, yeah. I just want to start with some basics, well, not start, but continue with some basics of when the film was completed, where did you screen it, and what was kind of the impact that it had, Frances?
Well, when we first conceived of the film, it really was when so many lesbians were having these battles, and we probably naively thought, let's make a film that judges are going to look at, and they're going to see that it isn't the homes where the sodomy is committed twice a week or whatever.
At least.
At least. Thank you. Yes, let's hope at least, right? So we thought, well, this film could be, used by lawyers who are in these cases and submitted as evidence, and then judges would then have to see it. That maybe actually did happen in a couple of cases, but when we were done with the film, we realized really what it was an organizing film, and a film for the lesbian community that needed it. So Liz and I got in our Volkswagen van in the fall of 1977, and we literally drove around the country. The van, I think, blew up twice. We had to replace the engine twice on that trip. But we went from city to city, all the cities that had lesbian communities around the country, and we showed the film. We showed it in church basements. We showed it in gymnasiums, we showed it, all the places that lesbians gathered, we showed the film. And so that really, at that point, became the primary audience for the film. And it had some theatrical screenings as well in places, and it went to festivals both in this country and in Europe. I mean, it was really interesting how much the Europeans were very interested in this subject. So we were, in the year after the film was done, it was probably at, three or four European festivals, and won some awards and things like that. So it was seen more in that way than it was necessarily seen by judges. Although I do think some judges probably did see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to say is that this film came out in 1977, and that was the same year that Harvey Milk became the first gay elected official in the United States. And it was just this moment, this cusp. I mean, you addressed that a little bit in your introduction, where suddenly there was much more gay visibility than there had ever been, and there was also all of the backlash to that at the same time. So having films, like Word Is Out and like In the Best Interest of the Children were such important films at that time to make that visibility and useful as an organizing tool. And I just think that this is a perfect moment in time that this film has gotten this restoration, because here we are again, folks. So, and it takes different forms, but it's the same thing. Again, that level of repression, oppression.
Yeah. So you and Liz Stevens were going through these custody issues as you were shooting the film?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a custody battle per se. It was really what gets said in Topiary's film, Molly's film, sorry, that, there was not an active custody battle going on, but Julie really wanted to be living with us. And, the compromise we made with Julie's dad was that she could come spend every weekend with us. And so she did. We would pick her up on Saturday morning after the required therapist you had to see. Right.
To shrink my head.
Yeah, exactly. And we would pick her up, and we would bring her back as late as we possibly could on Sunday night, and literally crying all the way. And so it was more that than it was like an actual custody battle, although we did start talking with that lawyer who's in the film about what we could do to gain custody. Well, Julie solved the problem for us, actually. She just made her father's life hell.
I just acted like a crazed, maniacal 13-year-old, and I think he got scared of me.
Right.
He was like, "Oh shit, take her."
Yeah, he said, you can have her.
I was robbing houses. I was doing all kinds of stuff. So he was like, this is not going to work in suburban
In Canoga Park.
Canoga Park.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's a quote, I think I heard it in Better Things, where it's like all mothers are single mothers. And one of the subjects in your documentary basically said that. And I was just thinking about how ahead of the time your film was in pointing out these issues, right? Not just for lesbians, but for women, right?
Right.
You know, like
Right.
for quote unquote mothers, you know, it's just like you're unearthing all of these taboos and having these the film was such an important, I can imagine, I'm just trying to imagine those conversations in those church basements. You know, it must have been like almost like those consciousness raising groups of the early feminist movement. Yeah. And what do you remember about, were you involved in the making of the film on the weekend?
I was kind of behind the scenes.
There were some pictures of you.
I was carrying
right, with like
stuff
a headset on
and
or
hanging
something?
out.
Okay.
And my father, to that point, part of the custody battle was like, "Oh hell no, you're not going to be in the film. You're not gonna have anything on the screen about him or me or custody or any of that." So my memory was like, I was just friends with all of these kids, and we would, you know, as kids do, we would get together and wrestle and do all kinds of kid fun things. But no, I wasn't in the film.
Okay. So you weren't like there on the side when the kid interviews were happening.
I was at many of them, but not all of them.
Oh, okay. You just
because
were
I
not on
wasn't
film.
with my mom and Frances full time.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So you were there. You were an associate producer.
I was an associate producer, maybe the youngest one ever.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and this is for anyone on the panel, maybe starting with Molly and Topiary, of just what's your reaction to the interviews with the children? Like, do you remember when you first saw that? Like, what did you tell us about your initial reactions to that?
I mean, I think that was one of the parts of the film. I mean, besides the whole thing where it really hits, where we get this feeling that it's so obvious. It's like the kids, doesn't matter, all from the youngest one all the way, just the way they express the feelings of what it means, fairness, you know, their rights, all of it. It's just, and then you sort of think about the layers of the court system and the battles and the sort of going back and forth between the parents, and it's just that idea in the end. I love that, Frances, how you guys had like, thank you to the children for your wisdom. And for a while, Topiary and I had even thought about titling the film The Wisdom of the Children, because it just pierces right through. And I think especially then when we started talking about how to, you know, of course, tying it to everything that's happening now. And we were working on it in 2023. And so, of course, it only even amplified. We finished it this year, but just how simple that idea and just their poignancy and their ability to communicate, but then with such heartfelt feeling, it just, to us, that was such an important piece.
Yeah, I mean, I think we had an earlier idea that we had was to find a lot of the kids who are adults now, and kind of have a then and now relationship, and we did track down a few of them, and the truth that was one thing that was complicated was, like, Frances describes the film as a kind of propaganda film, and the truth that we were hearing from a few of the kids we found was a way more complicated story. Yeah. And we felt, after we talked to two of the Norman kids, we felt like that's maybe not the story we want to tell for this. So that was one interesting kind of experience. You know, the other thing that, I mean, to me, I think I say it in the narration, like the kids being given a platform in the film is, to me, one of the most remarkable things about it, and one of the most striking things. And I love the way in which the film is modeling a type of parenting that is about respect. I mean, a couple of the mothers say that, and Norman Jean says that, but you feel it in the kids. The kids are being given a voice. And there was one question, though, that your mom asks about the sexuality. I was like, it's so 70s, and also it's a little bit, there's a people would not ask that to kids these days, I don't think. And so that also
it was radical to do that.
It was radical, and it was interesting, and I was almost checking my own prurient reaction to that. But, it was also like a different time in all those ways. And so I also find that to be a really interesting aspect of the film.
Yeah, and it was the older kids who responded, right? Because,
Right.
in some ways, like
Yeah.
the younger kids, they may not even really have understood.
Yeah, you see
like,
Jimmy going like, I don't know. like,
that's not my life yet. I don't know about that.
We did decide that was an important question to ask, though, because that was so much of what the courts were using against lesbians, which is, you're going to turn your kids gay.
And
Well,
look what happened.
Look what happened. Case in point. So that was actually what was the impetus behind that question.
Yeah. I just couldn't believe. I mean, I can believe it, but the fathers, like, it was about them just winning, but they didn't
right?
really want to do the work of raising children, and just, the idea of just like depositing your children somewhere, like they're, just objects to be moved around. Yeah, is quite shocking. I think I'm going to open it up for questions. So start thinking about your questions. I'm trying to formulate a question about these layers. And it has something to do with, there's just something really beautiful about, like, even the title Lesbian Custody is, a double meaning, right? Like, it has this archival, it's like you're doing this deep archival queer kind of project, right? That's like preserving this groundbreaking documentary that was, not mainstream or not as widely seen as maybe it ought to have been. And at the same time, it's like deeply in the present, but it's also like obviously linked to the past. And I guess the question is something about like the queer archive. Like, what are your dreams for, because I know you were helping Frances get her archive together in an organized fashion to be able to share with others. What do you think is the power of specifically like documenting the queer archive and building that out?
Again, given the time that we are in right now, I can't think of a more important thing to do. They are trying their damnedest to erase us, whether it's taking Harvey Milk's name off of a ship or whatever it is. So there's never been a more important time to be preserving our history and amplifying our history. And we will win that one. I don't have any doubt that we will win that one.
That's right.
Because we are mighty, an army of lovers. But it has to be actively happening on all fronts all the time.
It does.
I mean, I think that your question, how you started your question, is also about the naming the film Lesbian Custody, and that was very honest for me, and it's something that Molly and I talked a lot about, which was I genuinely really have never identified as a lesbian, even though I am one. But my generation, my Gen X 90s generation, was very all about queer. I mean, I identified as a dyke, but and I think that this project and really like deep diving into this archive honestly really did make me want to think and question my own maybe reflexive allergy to the word and what is behind that, which I think is internalized misogyny or internalized lesbophobia or whatever. And, and also I think that we are in a time of, I think that lesbian history has been always kind of erased in the larger queer spectrum. And so it's like, also I want to participate in giving our foremothers their due.
Yeah. And I just think as a parent, it's like a parenting video. Like, I feel like new parents should watch this, it would save them a lot of time. And, and even how particularly the two scenes, Miss Boogie Woogie in the fabulous jumpsuit. I mean, they almost didn't even need to say anything, right? Like, you get their connection and the closeness there. And how Kathy and Margaret Sloan are playing cards as they share this, like, heartbreaking story. It's like, just these simple day-to-day, togetherness that really demonstrates like the power of what you're trying to say. Does anyone have a question? And we'll have a student theater worker bring you a mic. Please wait for the mic because we do record these for posterity.
Hi, I was really impressed by the range in the subjects and their identities, especially thinking about like their class brackets too. What was the process of finding the subjects and also establishing this rapport of trust for filming their scenes?
I was afraid somebody was going to ask that question. I mean, the film was made almost 50 years ago. So exactly what the process was for finding the mothers, I can tell you the first mother I found was Nancy Jean, the woman with the 3 kids. And she was and she actually had a partner who did not want to participate in the film, but she was such a kind of wholesome person and wholesome mother. It's funny because
She was the one wearing the Army of Lovers shirt?
yes,
Okay.
exactly. And I just thought, she's a great poster child for lesbian motherhood. And we had already been talking about wanting to make that film. And so I went and talked to her, and she said, "Sure, why not?" And then we knew we wanted to. We filmed both here in Los Angeles. There are two families in Los Angeles, one kind of in the middle of the state, and then the rest were in Northern California. But a lot of it was kind of the word of mouth thing. I mean, I knew Margaret Sloan, and so
You knew Yvonne too, right? Ramos?
I didn't know Yvonne. I met Yvonne through somebody. That's the thing. I can't tell you the exact connections that I made, but we just knew that we wanted to have, a diversity as much as we possibly could have. And, the lesbian community, both down here and in the Bay Area, was pretty tight. So people, you just start saying, "I'm going to do this film," and somebody says to you, "Oh, well, you should talk to so-and-so." And Pat Norman was, a very much a public figure at that point, and became even more of one. So some people were
Can we just say, Pat Norman also, like, one of the things that was interesting to me about learning about the film from the archives is to learn that Pat Norman had worked with Del Martin on creating the Lesbian Mothers Union,
Right.
which was an organization where you see, like, in one part the mimeographed newsletter, but she was an important figure in the organization of lesbian mothers fight,
She was the one talking about her husband had a Navy uniform, in case
Right.
you didn't know her name.
Yeah, and actually, it's probably from Phyllis and Del that I got Pat. They put me in touch with Pat Norman at that point, probably because Phyllis and Del were like 2 of the first people I reached out to about making this film.
and that's Phyllis Lyon and Del Martin.
Right.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions? There's one way over there. They're going to get your steps in tonight.
Hi. My question is in regards to the comment about the film being like a work of propaganda, and I just wanted to ask, like, as filmmakers who seek to make non-sexist, non-classist, non-homophobic films, like, do you not consider all of your works of propaganda? Or like, do you consider yourself propagandists at all, or like, why or why not?
Oh, that's a really great question. Yes, of course, on some level, I consider all of my work to be propaganda. I mean, let's say this. All of my work has a point of view. It's like nothing's neutral, because I don't think there is such a thing. And, I was just talking about this last night. It's an expensive medium, and you don't kind of want to waste it on just, I don't know, navel gazing, I guess. So yes, it's always going to be trying to convince somebody of something, or make them think a little bit more deeply, or move them a little bit politically in the direction that you would like them to move in. So in that sense, yes. I just think that this film, and actually another film I made with a filmmaker named Dee Mossbacher, which also got an Academy Award nomination. It's called Straight from the Heart. That film was specifically made as a piece of propaganda in response to a film that was being circulated by the Christian right in the early 1990s called The Gay Agenda, and it was about how the gay people are coming for you, and they're coming for your kids, and they're going to convert you to queerdom. So we made a film where we went out and we found the most conservative parents of queer people that we could find. Most of them were Republicans. One was like a Mormon couple in Utah, and we interviewed. They were all these really salt. And one of them was the police chief of Portland, Oregon, and that film was intentionally a propagandistic film in a direct answer to this gay agenda film. So some of them are more propagandistic than others, and others, you try to like maybe have more subtlety or nuance or something. So for me, in terms of the films that I've made over a 40-year career, they've kind of run the gamut of that, but they all are intended to be persuasive.
Yeah, I think it was W.E.B. Du Bois who said all art is propaganda.
Right.
Fact check me on that.
And probably the better the art, the better the propaganda.
Yeah. There's a question right in the middle here.
That was so beautifully done. Thank you so much. I don't know who said this. I don't know if it was someone in the audience or one of you that said, and it was even one of the actors, or not even an actor, right, the people in the film. She said, if my child's nose bleeds, it doesn't matter what my sexual orientation is as to how I'm going to feel about my child's nose bleeding. And what was so powerful about this film was how incredibly, like, progressively forward thinking all of these moms are, that really could be a lesson for all moms all the time, which is just really honoring who their children are. So it's interesting that you're saying that about, it's propaganda. Like, to me, it's I don't know, it's like obvious. How do you... So it's not even about lesbian mothering, it's about just mothering. Right. That is so powerful and beautiful, the way that this movie was done, and I just want to say thank you. So it's less of a question even than a comment, and how can that be brought into the mainstream of, this is what mothering should look like.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Melanie.
I thought you were going to answer. How do you bring this into the mainstream? I don't know if there is an answer to that.
No, I'd rather just say
really
thank
been
you.
focused on that.
They're just ignoring me.
If anybody out there has the answer to that question,
Well, I mean, I
us.
think the research also has really caught up to what we already knew, right? Which is, both a blessing and a curse, I guess. But there's all kinds of studies now that show, like, lesbian parenting is superior to other parenting,
Yeah.
like literally.
Yeah.
So
I don't know how to answer that directly, but I just wanted to say that I feel like when you're living outside of the margins, you tend to, well, this might sound repetitive or redundant, but you tend to think of things in a different way because you have to. It's like the personal becomes political because it had to, because my child was literally taken away from me, or my freedom was literally taken away from me. And so, like, as an adult, and I see this film again, like as a kid, it was so emotional for me, right? Because I was living it. And now more as an adult, I can see, oh, wow, like more of how my mom used to say, come up here and look at something and see, like, yeah, now I see why these women, some of these women like Nancy Jean and the others were so heartfelt as women and mothers and passionate, and Margaret as a black lesbian woman, like triple jeopardy. Like she had to rethink things and had to bring this different sort of joie de vivre to her life. So that's what I wanted to say.
just to wrap things up, I wonder if you could talk about, well, I always say, how can people who are interested in supporting your work, your future work, your present and future work, how can they do that? And if there's work that you're working on now or future work that you want to tell us about.
Okay, before we wrap up, I also want to give a shout out to Sue Talbot, who is out there somewhere. You remember when I was showing Julie the T-shirt in Topiary's film? Sue Talbot made those T-shirts at the Apple Room, silk screened them at the Apple Room. And in every way during that whole period of our lives was such a friend and such a support.
And lived right around the corner from us.
Lived right around the corner. So, shout out to you, Sue. And answer to that question, for me, I'm not making films anymore, but I would certainly love to have this film have a whole new life. I think it needs it. It deserves it. And, again, Topiary's doing her absolute best to make that happen. But, any of you out there that have thoughts about how and where this film can be used and seen and shown and so forth, that would be great. For me personally, what I'm working on right now, as you mentioned in the introduction, is a memoir about all of the films that I have made over 40 years, and that's my current passion. It's much easier than hauling cameras around. So I'm looking for a publisher, if anybody has ideas about that.
All right.
Great. I want to read that.
Cool.
Topiary.
So these two films together are showing in a few venues in the Bay Area this month. So that's really exciting. Frameline and CA Film in Marin and in Oakland. And then I'm hard at work contacting programmers to try to get it shown far and wide. There's a couple projects that I'm working on, but I can't talk about them. And and I just started working at Mill Valley Film Festival, so that's exciting. And yeah, awesome.
What you got?
I'm working now on a similar. It's related. So I'm working on a feature documentary about the Lexington Club, which is. Closed 10 years ago and was a lesbian bar. It started as like a dyke bar and turned into more of a queer bar over 20 years. Started in 97 and then in 2015 was closed. And part of what's interesting for me is I'm really interested in this idea of history, and sort of part of it is like being of that generation, but maybe feeling like wanting to bring that history to life and bringing that into the now, and feeling how much looking back to the different generations, we can kind of tie. So in this case, in our film Lesbian Custody, getting to know Frances and that generation and being like, taking inspiration from that, but even understanding it. And I feel like in the Lexington doc, it's about understanding that this new generation, Gen Z, their access to physical space has been really changed a lot due to like the rise of social media, of course the pandemic, things like that, but sort of wanting to create a tie between generations so that there can be much more of this, not only learning from it, but active inspiration, and like as Frances was saying, kind of all of us on board now together. And so hopefully that through line for me is really important. So that hopefully will come out next spring.
And is that bar in New York, or was it?
It was in San Francisco.
San Francisco.
Yep, San Francisco.
You can also interview me about that.
Oh, Julie was there too. Okay.
I don't know if I remember that well though.
Most people don't.
I sowed some oats over there. I am working on healing, what we're all doing here. So I am a coach, I'm a healer, and I speak in front of groups helping them to, I speak in front of groups anywhere from community LGBTQ centers, film stages. If you know of anyone who needs a great speaker, I'm a public speaker, and I can't wait to see this film go around the country. I remember being young and being in that van, driving with you and my mom, Liz, and going around to hear them speak on stages, and I can't even tell you this. Well, I can tell you this is a dream come true to be here.
It's a beautiful way to end. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
And thank you all for coming out tonight.
And thank you again to UCLA for all.
Yeah, thank you.
And to
On behalf of
Beandrea.
UCLA, I
Thank
say
you,
it's a
Beandrea.
pleasure. Yeah.